Hello again. We're at day 350, 365 days toward racial change. This is our last hill to crest, and we're going to go downhill. Um, take some pressure off our legs and let gravity do the rest of the work here. My name's Tomlin Snyback, and welcome to us again. If you are new to this community, shame on you. Where you been all your life? Oh, but we're here talking about how skin color happens in America. What things are applied, what needs to be resisted, considered, thought about um, as we navigate. And everybody. There's no one immune in America to this communal disease, to this kind of coronavirus, right? If we could put racism in a test tube, I'm sure it would be like a coronavirus. All right, it'd be, a cell with little projections out of it, and just cunning, dangerous, diabolical, you know, um, leaving mysterious after effects and diseases in its wake. That's racism. Just some crazy coronavirus disease. We just can't. It's sad because we can't quantify it as we would a physical virus or a chemical or radiation or something like that. It's it's an invisible enemy. It's a real invisible enemy, but its impact is quantifiable. You know, people go hungry, get incarcerated. Oh, to have drugs put in their neighborhoods. Look at We go back in time. It abuses people physically. Right now, that's a hell of a disease. Yeah, now if you could really bottle that, but you didn't have to, right? Because so many people took and people run with this disease and go on, because the disease has some oh beneficial properties to people who can wield it, right? And we're talking about it generally our white counterparts, right, in America. Um, but make no mistake, you go around the world, you're going to find groups of people who discriminate for all of other kinds of reasons. In America, um, it's very visible and whatnot. I've said before, it's like you go to Africa and you see a genocide, you're like, what are you doing? Or the Middle East, you see religious tensions, and it's like, I don't see it, right? Or you go up into Europe, you got your Christians and Protestants. It's like, um, I'm not getting it, right? In America, we can see it. This color people is over here, and this color people is over here, right? And I don't know, maybe it's some natural condition of the mind that drives racism, biases. You know, if we were all transparent with our um, intestines showing and stuff like that, we'd still find something, wouldn't we? Boy, look at the lobe of your liver is you're over there. You're on that side of the people with lobes of that liver. right? So you're a slave, and we're going to exploit your labor, wealth, and power, and have you um, be totally ineffective in your family, and make you work so many hours, while we get surplus and store resources that we won't even use up in a thousand lifetimes, because the lobe of your liver is just a centimeter that way. Yeah, yeah, mankind's got a big problem. Racial change is about addressing that. The we're just, I guess we should be fortunate in some way. We're looking at the model, right? And we can choose to feed the beast and support it, or we can resist it. Well, we've got to deal with it because it's a very real condition in society and the community. So, you know, we're not we're not attacking really as individuals personally or giving people an out. We're trying to get at what is this disease in the community that that keeps people in such a bondage on all sides. I'm inspired to do this work. Had my eyes opened by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. Read three of his works. Black History Reader: 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Black Labor, White Wealth: Search for Power and Economic Justice. And Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson here on YouTube and Powernomics.com. Behind me, you see the hashtag #US2 symbol. You'll find black women coming together, supporting each other, sharing resources, having their community. If you've got, check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF. That was kind of a black Facebook experience. Can't find your flavor here on the internet, though. Do what I did. Just start your own little deal. Yes. If you're just first tuning in, yes, there are. This is the 350th episode of me monologuing here. It is possible. I'm really starting to becoming a believer in the greater possibilities from this project. If you got a business mind, check out Dr. Boyce Watkins at the Black Business School, theblackbusinessschool.com. There's another nice, good guy, Tyrone Gregory, the self-employed tax guy. Got some good stuff to say. Oh, we talk about money a lot, economics. If you're interested in some of the macroeconomics, World Banks, Federal Reserve, this is a good book to check out. Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. Also, we have Story Time. We've gone through this book by Harriet Beecher Stowe, Uncle Tom's Cabin, and we're back in here today actually going to talk about Ophelia and St. Clare. We had a lot of good conversation around those two. Oh, Ophelia and St. Clare. What I love about Uncle Tom's Cabin is Harriet Beecher Stowe is so. This is a woman that has such a complexity of thought and her mind. Her characters are all unique and complicated, and it's quite a feat. Now she's drawing on a lot of genuine experiences that she's either heard about or seen, but she's taken those characters and experiences and made this nice mosaic of an experience and moved us through time very eloquently. Now, also, what we're going to talk about today is some of the philosophy that she's trying to put forth, and some of the issues with holding slaves, freeing slaves is not as cut and dry as we might think. And we're going to find that out today. And she does it manipulating this character Ophelia and a man named St. Clare. Um, they're cousins. Now, Ophelia's from the north, St. Clare is a plantation owner in the south. And um, we're going to just dissect those two characters, but they illustrate some very important aspects of slavery in America that is it's important to look at when when we talk about emancipation, privileges, and things like that. First, Ophelia, she comes down from the north, and the north is free and all this, but Ophelia gets tested by a young black child named Topsy, and St. Clair has cunningly bought Topsy from the Jim Crow line. I think we're going to talk about Jim Crow in another couple episodes again, and gifts her to Ophelia, and Ophelia's like, well, why you give me this black girl and stuff, and St. Clair is like, he's challenging, he wants to tease out whether Ophelia's abolitionist and Christian modes of thinking is genuine. Is right. This is the where the rubber meets the road. If you want to know if you really are made of the right stuff, then go immerse yourself in an experience. Say a new language, playing an instrument. I play guitar, so I don't mind it now, but a challenge used to be to go to a blues jam or something like that. You get up there and you show your stuff. Well, for Ophelia from up north, St. Clair wants her to demonstrate some of these ideologies of abolition, Christian sentiments, and things like that. And Ophelia, she's got her hands full with this black child she's orphaned, has no values, has to be trained up from scratch, and she's already in her preteen years, right? So she's a handful. Fortunately for Topsy, she spends time with another little white girl named Eva, and that helps points her in the way of at least desiring to adopt some values and to be good in the white establishment. But Ophelia, what we get from Ophelia, we find out that the North, slavery, racism is covert in the northern states and colonies. It's Racism is overt in the South. When we see uh, separate water fountains and I don't know, slaves doing the work and stuff like that. Well, we're in the South. We get it. It's Louisiana. It's Georgia, South Carolina, right? Virginia. But when we go up north, we see black people walking around free, but if we hang around a little while, we're going to see they're free, but there's still this division up north between white and black. There's still some tensions up there. Years later, Martin Luther King he's going to do a march in Chicago, and I think that's where he gets hit in the head by a brick or something, and the those people up in Illinois are just so rabidly racist that Dr. Martin Luther King says the people from the South got to come up here and learn what racism is, right? That's what happened in the North. So the North is not. Oh yeah, it's a free place, but it's still, uh, you know, segregated, and it's still very aggressive in its racism, right? And Ophelia, until she met Topsy and started trying to apply some structure to Topsy's life, she had no idea how wayward she was. It's comfortable to sit in her white New England community and talk down on um, those slave handlers down south and her cousin St. Clare, housing slaves and forcing people to work. And I'm sure she could toss her head back and forth, uh, condemning the behavior of her southern brothers and sisters and cousins, of course, at this point in St. Clair. Um, but she had no idea until she really had to live with Topsy, and she had to touch Topsy. That was another big hurdle in the uh, in the book. And Ophelia, she goes through a lot of changes and challenges, especially on that touching issue. To be intimate with that black skin. You know, aside from color, you close your eyes, it's skin. It's someone's. There's a warmth, someone's hand there, and she's got to overcome that. Until that, Topsy's like, uh, this little black child is like, I'm wicked and I'm bad, and she has internalized a lot of the abuse, verbal and physical, of all the white masters she has um, probably been through. If you go to the industry, the slave industry, like that, it treat there's a section of that slave industry that treated um, breeding of black children. It's probably very similar to having a puppy mill. You just spitting out puppies, and you're just selling. You're not breeding them, for function or anyway. You're just getting your birth rate going, right? And so that's where Topsy lived. She didn't know her age, her parents, where she's from. I mean, think of that stuff today. Unfortunately, I know my father's passed on, but my mother's still with us. The town I grew up, at least I had a few years of what we would consider a healthy, normal family unit going on. Well, so but Topsy's a blank slate, and she comes under Ophelia's care, and she's the perfect child to bring Ophelia to her senses. By the end of that episode, Ophelia she initially came down to help out with St. Clair's daughter. St. Clair's husband, or St. Clair's wife, is useless. So Ophelia came down to kind of keep the house in order, but things had fallen apart. St. Clair dies and all that. We're going to talk about him in just another minute. But so she says, you know what? She gets her breakthrough while she's on St. Clair's plantation, which is good. And when she gets her breakthrough with caring for it and getting authentically intimate with Topsy, now she can take Topsy up north, and she's going to take her into her community and nurture her and give her some guidance in the way. Um, She's going to educate her, get her civilized, so to speak. But from that whole, from the conversations and all that, we learned that north, you know, up north, oh, it was free, but the the nature of the freedom was it was still in a segregated mode. It wasn't like up north was you have this collection and this great intimacy between black folks and white folks in the north, right? And I think Harriet Beecher Stowe was trying to point some of that out, touch on that. Yeah, blacks are free up north, but there's still going to be some issues and challenges. On that note, we come into St. Clare. Now, St. Clare, he's not a cruel slave master, but he expresses his appreciation that he was born white, that he was born with wealth and sustenance. Him and his brother had, I think they split their father's estate. Now his brother was like, the black child, and the black person is um, it's the labor force. We're just managing labor. We're not getting intimate and thinking about health care plans, family leave, and stuff like that. They are slaves. That's St. Clair's brother. St. Clair's got more of a heart. He was closer to his mother coming up, and the white females we got a lot of advocacy from white females on this slavery issue and stuff like that. So we might have to holler back on that, reciprocate, think about that in some ways. Because I mean, overall, it's like if you're not a white heterosexual male, you've got some beefs with the world and various systems. Essentially, if you're a white heterosexual male, you're kind of getting along well in the system. So St. Clair, that's St. Clair, white heterosexual male, but he's got some heart. And the slavery thing is it's kind of a nasty business. He's kind of a safe space for Topsy, because as Topsy's going through this orientation with Ophelia, um, when she really gets in trouble, she'll run to St. Clair for rescue. That's the kind of heart he had. But they have a couple conversations about freeing the slaves being free and able to move about and stuff like that. And like, you have to think, like, slavery wasn't so much, there's nothing that really can equate what Harriet Beecher Stowe was struggling with about having slaves go free. It wasn't as simple as freeing the slaves. Freeing the slaves, that's not really the issue. That's a veneer on the serious problem about the question about how is the black person going to survive in a community, in a white community. It's not like the white community is welcoming this new level of competition. Not like the white community is throwing open the doors in industry, education, rights, and stuff like that. We know from history with our Jim Crow um, semi-slavery, continued segregation, that the slaves were free, and the Constitution and the 13th Amendment was cleverly worded, right? You can't have any um, uh, force people into servitude except for like as a punishment for a criminal penalty. So suddenly through the South, they criminalize all kinds of behavior on a whim to get that free black labor back under guard, back in and mired in the system, and that was what awaited emancipated black folks. And St. Clair is like, part of my job, what I feel, and I believe he really feels this. Harriet Beecher Stowe really crafts him as a person with a heart, with an altruistic intent. She's like, he's like, it's one and the same. It's Harriet Beecher Stowe. It's kind of like there's a philosopher named Soren Kierkegaard, and he has all these pseudonyms that he's written all this philosophy. Well, that's the same way. That's the same thing here is what I'm trying to think about. If you read any fictional book, it's the characters are pseudonyms for um, the author. The author has all these characters, but it's really the same author there. Anyway, that's a little philosophical tidbit. So St. Clair has this heart. He's like, what are the slaves going to do if we free the slaves? We're just going to put them out on the street, right? There's a rift, a gap, a chasm between the slave on the plantation and living successfully and competitively out in the world. Um, so he's right, actually, because what are you going to do? And you look at the history, from the 13th Amendment on, and emancipation, and through the 60s, you see this you see St. Clair's thought being played out in America as though America's doing us such a favor. America's doing black people such a favor by just dragging its heels, and slowly allowing black people to access the system, right? Instead of like delivering the rightful resources, but in all fairness, right? There was back pay owed, and if you remember Roots, as emancipation was coming down the road in Roots, you had some um, cunning slave masters that suddenly drew up a bill uh, of resources that the slaves, their housing, food, and suddenly they start, uh, itemizing these things against the slave that was another device mechanism to keep the slave kind of grounded and controlled. So those baby steps in a nation that is hostile to a specific group. Oh, those have to be some treacherous years, right? You had the lynchings and stuff, and a lot of things, but St. Clair he's he's bringing us. He's pointing out that the slavery now that the damage was done, we need a plan to uh, to allow these people, to be free, but competitively, successfully, right? And that had not um, that had not come to so much fruition as yet, right? And if you look from the mid 1800s up to the present, you kind of see that happening. right? I don't think it's right to say, remove all the resistances and provide the, um, the right wealth and resources so a person can be competitive and bloom right where they're at, and not always be beholden to the white system for success, wealth, competition, education, health, um, and things like that, right? To put us in a position where we're going to self determine our lives. St. Clare knows that that's not the case. In his day, if it's just like if you, I don't know, had your animal, a pet, and you suddenly just let him off, right? Thinking, oh, that's an animal, they'll get it, but they've been domesticated. They've been with you, right? There's rumors if you let a dog loose and they run into a pack of dogs, the dog will adapt and stuff like that. Yeah, possible, but the dog's domestic. It's a 50-50. It's a crapshoot, you know. So those are two of the issues. We had Ophelia exposes racism very real and the covert up north, and we see the impact of colonialism on the population in the South and struggling with some philosophical issues about freeing the slaves. I'm Thomas Nyback. Let's stay 350 out of the way. 365 days towards racial change. It is all downhill from here. Let's see what kind of mischief we can get into as we wrap up this project. Thank you.